Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a tier list for February of 2024. Of course, guys, it's the perfect season to get high rank in RTA because Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And if you want to impress your loved one with a high rank, today I have a 2024 February PvP tier list to enlighten you guys or to teach you guys. You could use this to impress, gain as much MMR, ELO, whatever you want to call it. Let's get into it. So the first tier that we have is the S tier, and a lot of the characters that you're seeing here are pretty much always going to stay in the S tier until Smoglate, I don't know, removes Book from the game or does something really crazy. You have Lua, you have Angel of Light, Briarwitch Iceria, Zeo, Abyssal Yuffie, and Candy. All these characters are good for a couple reasons, mainly the fact that you can play around or build an entire playstyle around them. And honestly, a lot of the S tier are great answers to each other. You have a character like Rand who's definitely weak to someone like Navy Captain Landy. You have someone like Moon Bunny who counters Conqueror Lilius. Lua doesn't do that great against Bellion, etc, etc. The list goes on and on. Point being, a lot of these S tier characters are characters that you would definitely spend a lot of time just specifically trying to build around so that you can gain free points, or they're designed for you to basically play one specific playstyle, and you design a composition using mostly the S tier characters at first, and then you kind of pick and choose between the A, the B, the C tier, etc, etc. A special shout out to one of the characters in the S tier, I think is Knockwall and probably Aiden, primarily because these two characters are not only kind of different or newer additions, or I really shouldn't say newer, but Aiden has a special perk of basically being free. Everyone has access to Aiden if you play her. If you haven't played around Aiden, or if you haven't played around Aiden already, she's really frustrating to play against. A lot of people pick her and they basically one-shot your whole team, or they don't get hit ever, and it kind of feels like a cheater unit. Most people I know want Aiden to be removed from the game. And if we move over to Knockwall, the reason why I especially mentioned her is because she's kind of a ridiculous unit. In essence, if you're just lucky, you counter every single character in the game, minus basically Ambitious Tywin and like maybe Angel of Light. That being said though, she's a great character, and she isn't technically a limited, or she's not some weird limited character that you have to pull off of like a special banner. As far as I know, or as far as I remember, guys, Knockwall isn't limited, right? Anyone? Knockwall isn't limited, right? Don't think she's limited. Anyways, she's not limited and she does a lot. So if you want to pick up a character and or if you want to pick up a character in order to cleave, I definitely consider playing Knockwall just because she's, you know, she's easier to get. She's RGB. You could probably story summon her sometime down, like somewhere down in the future. Her artifact is also really good for PvP and PvE if you decide to play that way, which is great. All in all though, those two characters I would say are the characters to look out for specifically for S tier. Otherwise, you guys know all these other characters are strong, but specifically these two characters I think are more accessible than some of the others. Keep that in mind though if you are going to play Cleave or if you want to just play with Aiden. Okay, so the next thing that we have is the A tier, and of course you have characters like Sid, you have Architect Laika, ML Shu, Christy, Elena, and there's plenty of characters here that are good. The reason why A tier characters are rated as A tier is because a lot of these characters go directly hand in hand with the characters in the S tier, or they kind of make the entire playstyle come together. Now, what I mean by that is that if you are playing more aggressively, the reason why characters like Architect Laika, Sid, ML Shu, and Gala Lilius are so important, and the reason why they're up in A is because they're also really good at supporting the S tier characters. Whether they give attack buff, whether they eliminate someone off the board, they can basically all one-shot each other, or they kind of prevent each other from activating. Gala Lilius gets countered by Ocean Breeze Luluka. ML Shu kind of does well against, or deals well against, you know, some of the tankier characters like A Tywin. The list goes on and on. However, ultimately, a lot of these characters are early pickable, and they do a great job, especially at accentuating a playstyle or allowing you to pick even more of the characters that we're going to talk about, I guess technically above me, but in the B, C, and D tier. Within the A tier though, three kind of special notes I want to make about the A tier are three characters that you are probably a little bit confused about how they're there or why they're there, and that would probably be Faithless Litica, Sid, and Christy. Now, I get it. Faithless Litica and Sid, there's no longer like a cleave section that I have anymore. So these characters are definitely really strong, but a lot of people probably aren't playing them if you're playing in below champion, or if you're playing like just at the champion rank. And the reason for this is that these characters are really gear intensive. However, when you have them on really good gear, they kind of just blow open everything. It's impossible, basically. It feels like at times to beat these characters. And so if you're just fast enough, Faithless Litica, Sid, really good characters. And that's why they're in the A tier. However, the kind of odd one out, and kind of a character that, admittedly, again, I'd kind of put under, or I'd kind of misjudged, or I guess I kind of dogged on a little bit, is Christy. And the reason why Christy is here is because if you didn't see my match at the CCB, which unfortunately I lost that series, which sucks, and I suck, but Christy is really good at doing something called a Zeo trap. Now, again, I will explain it because Zeo trapping is kind of like a term that a lot of people that play RTA are familiar with. But if you're unfamiliar with what the term is, Zeo trapping is essentially when you force a Zeo to hit a specific target, and having your team, the Christy's team, benefit because they're forced to hit someone like Christy, General Purgus, Aiden, etc., etc. So, with the term of Zeo trapping, when you force Zeo to hit a Christy, what Christy does is she pushes up the person in the back line up 25%, so long as she herself does not get debuffed. Now again, she does not have an effective, or she herself does not have an effect resistance buff, which is kind of unfortunate because if she did, my goodness, Zeo would literally be really, really bad, and most people would probably just play or have to ban Christy when you're fighting against like a Zeo. However, what she does really well is, again, specifically allow your backline character like Lua or Spectre Tenebria or Faith Athletica push up, take the turn, one shot whatever you want, or, you know, debuff the entire team. And now the Zeo that, you know, probably paired his team with someone like Caesarea, Politis, Ran, etc., just gets one shot or just gets controlled by the Lua. Long story short, she kind of deals with Zeo really well, and Zeo's one of the highest rated characters up here. I do sincerely think that Zeo's probably in the top 4 of characters in EpicSeven right now. He's really strong. However, if you want to deal with him, I think Christy is a great option or solution. Christy paired with Aiden kind of deals with, or kind of creates, like the Zeo trap playstyle. So if you want to play that playstyle, if you're having trouble dealing with Zeo, build Christy today. That's the A tier. Okay, so the next tier that we have is B tier. And a lot of these characters are probably characters that you may be able to see in the A tier, with the kind of one caveat being that a lot of these characters are kind of kept in check by Elvira. You have a couple characters here like Lionheart Sermia that now has to deal with Elvira, and Elvira removes Fighting Spirit. So it's like, eh. And again, aside from the fact that, you know, they're kept in check by Elvira, a lot of these characters are also very susceptible to the Ran Zeo playstyle. If you guys also missed it during the tournament, during my first set of matches, a lot of people will end up playing Ran Zeo right now to try and cleave, and that paired with a character like Ludwig or Commander Pavel kind of ruins any of these non-cleave oriented characters from being able to survive. Little Queen Charlotte, Lionheart Sermia, Remnant Violet, Sage Ball and Cezanne, pretty much any character here that doesn't have evasion or isn't, you know, prone to throwing back a debuff like Ed, basically gets countered by cleave. So that's why it feels a little bit harder to put them above B, just because if you find any sort of cleave, whether that's, again, Ran Zeo cleave, Knockwall cleave, any kind of cleave at all, you're kind of just sitting there kind of upset and frustrated, and you probably don't want to play Hua Young or Spez again because the Lua just reset you, right? That's basically where I'm coming from with the B tier. Now, I mentioned her, or I touched on her a little bit earlier, but the 3 characters that I guess I want to kind of talk and address in the B tier is going to be Sharoon, because she's newer, Elvira, and also this Famir character. There's a reason why I'm bringing up these 3 specific characters, and that's because I feel like they're played, but not played quite enough, or people are still kind of on the fence where they aren't really sure if they should build her or not, or if it's even worth building. So let me explain. In my opinion, Sharoon is kind of a mixed bag. You kind of have to go into playing Sharoon with the accepted fact that you have to pretty much only pick her into sleeping characters, or characters that sleep the enemy team. Now, I think Death to the Ray is probably one of like the top 10 characters in the game. He's definitely in the he's definitely in like the S tier category for this tier list. And so if you end up fighting against someone that likes to draft around or play heavily towards Death Dealer Ray, you just have to ban the Sharoon. You guys saw it when I fought against Jenna, and you probably have encountered it yourself, but like the whole pushing up thing and everyone getting like this cascade buff is really, really strong. And so therefore, just because of that, and just because, again, if anyone wants to play something like Sage Ball, you always have Sharoon in your pocket, I think she's pretty decent. At the very minimum, she's worth considering at B. Her class debuff is also really nice. I think a lot of people kind of sleep on how impactful attack down is on, you know, like on your S3, but if you attack down a or if you attack down like a thief or a mage, that's pretty much over. Like, it's pretty much over for them. Like, if Spectre Tenebria has attack down, she does like literally no damage whatsoever. Moving along, we have Elvira, and again, Elvira has been changed, and she's kind of like iffy, 50-50. People aren't sure where to, like, you know, basically where to land on her. Personally, I have her on like a weird kind of build, but I think that if you build her kind of tanky and if you have the effect resistance that you need to make sure that you can get your S3 off, she's pretty good. And in all honesty, again, she kind of does well against the fighting spirit characters in the game. So long as you can, number one, you know, make use of her def break, and number two, make use of the fighting spirit removal, she's a good character. You don't really have to do too much when it comes to like playing her. You just kind of pick her when you see the fighting spirit characters, and so long as you do your S3 and you know how to use Beguile, that's pretty much it. She's a pretty straightforward character. I know a lot of people like playing her into Guild War, which is great, so like pick her if you want. But the third and final character that I kind of want to bring up, the special note for this B tier, is Famir. Now again, I get it. Some of these characters, Famir, and definitely even like Jacko, Pavel, Rowana, and Laika, a lot of these characters are kind of making an appearance where they would normally have been in Cleave or something like that. However, I do want to make a bit of a disclaimer that, again, a lot of people I think have kind of slept on this Famir character. She's hot, definitely. Everyone agrees that, right? Famir, very waifu. However, how to actually use her and how difficult it would be in order to activate her S2 passive was kind of, I think, harshly judged or like harshly overestimated, I think, initially. Now, granted, we do need one of the most overpowered characters in the game, Death Dealer Ray, to properly play her, or to play Flitica and Sid, which is like, what are we talking about? However, assuming that you do get to play Famir, there aren't really that many characters in the game left that full strip into Death Break. The characters that you can kind of think of that kind of do that are Briarwitch Iceria, and we know where Briarwitch Iceria is. And Briarwitch Iceria, of course, has like her soul burn and has the hit chance, and that's crazy. But Famir is a no contact Death Break, sleep, and like do I have to sell you more on this character? She's really good, but again, she does have the caveat of, you know, needing to be set up and needing like the defense break and the sleeps, which is fine. But I do think that Famir is definitely B worthy. If you end up losing to like a Flitica Sid Famir draft, I apologize. I'm sorry. That's just how the game works. But I would be kind of trolling, I think, if I didn't at least put her in B, because again, she's pretty niche, but also good. Okay, I forgot to mention, but somewhat of a caveat for like the B tier characters is that, again, while they do support the S tier or like the S tier characters playstyle in addition to like the A tier characters, a lot of these characters are kind of like the more like nitty gritty. Like these are some of like the 3, 4, 5 picks when it comes to playing a playstyle. You're not really gonna pick Commander Pavel or Designer Lilibit on 3 unless if someone like has already hard committed to playing slow or has hard committed to debuffing you. That's kind of the same thing when it comes to some of these other characters. Arguably, a character like Lionheart Sirmia could be picked a little bit earlier, but again, Elvira's in the game. Like you can't really pick Ed on 3. Rylet on 3 is, you could pick Rylet anywhere, honestly, and if he gets hit, he gets hit. But ultimately, while they do complement, again, the A and S tiers very well, you do have to be a little bit careful with how you play them. Either you have to gear gap, or you have to have like a really good, you know, idea of what you're doing, or you just have to pick them on the 4-5. So for me, at least in my opinion, this is like, I guess, what defines a B tier character. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. This C tier is enormous. C tier has basically every other niche character that you can think of in the game, and they're all here. You have Strays, who definitely was stronger before and could definitely maybe go into the bottom of B, but he's now placed here in C because it feels a little bit weird with everyone having, you know, Holy Sack or dealing with, you know, pretty much everything in the game. Anything that's tanky kind of like deals with Strays right now. Stuff revives or stuff counters him. No one in their right mind is going to let you basically pick Strays without having Holy Sack. So right now he's kind of like a bait pick unless if the enemy opponent like just gets gear gapped. But for all the other characters, I think it's kind of what you would imagine. They're all 4 or 5 or 4th or 5th pick characters. They're great, again, when you need to get the force ban on 4-5. You have like your whole draft. You have Rand, Zeo, Pavel. You have Abyssal Euphine, Destina, Carmen, etc. with Lua. And you need like that perfect 5th pick. And it's like, boom, okay, like they have to ban my Benimaru. Or probably not. But like, boom, like they have to ban my T-Cern. Boom, they have to ban the Kairon. And when kind of these picks come out, this is when you know that you're going to get your 5th ban, or like you know you're going to get your 5th pick banned. Otherwise, the enemy opponent is just going to get an instant loss. And that's pretty much what all these characters are. In essence, you can't really pick them early. You can't really pick them on, you know, 3, 4, 5, or you can't really pick them on like the 1, 2, 3 slots. They have to be on 4, 5. If you early pick Ida, if you early pick Close to Charles, you're going to get run over. Anyways, my point is, a lot of these characters in C are not really supposed to be early picked. You have to have like a really specific playstyle if you want to play them. And ultimately, they're flexible in a sense when it comes to like which kind of playstyles work. But in my opinion, like they're definitely not slammable characters. Now, if I want to talk about some of like the highlights from this list, I will kind of touch on some of the imprints. The imprints are here because, again, you don't really pick imprints that frequently. However, if you do end up racing someone, and racing, by the way, if you're not familiar, is trying to take first turn with someone and you need speed imprints. These characters have speed imprints built into their kit. That's why a lot of these characters are here. You have like the Wanderer Silk, you have like the Vildred, which are obviously nice compliments after you already have a character like Sid. But Sid is kind of like the glue that kind of makes all of that work. Wanderer Silk is a little bit worse than Sid because, again, like Wanderer Silk is not usually built as fast as the Sid. The Sid can sometimes be the opener himself, which is why it's kind of crazy. But then the character that I also want to touch on here is going to be Spirit Eye Celine and Closer Charles. Now, you're probably wondering, how is Closer Charles up here? Closer Charles is bad. I've never seen anyone use him. He's so awful. He's got the worst stats ever. His S3 animation sucks. And you're like half right. You're like kind of right. And the reason why I have Closer Charles here is because, in all honesty, we're getting to a point right now where people are being extremely disrespectful with the way that they draft. Now, again, the reason why he's in C tier and not in B tier is because Angel of Light and some other characters exist. But people have been drafting like random CR pushing characters, or have been drafting extremely slow. And sometimes what you need is to activate or to, you know, put the Aiden's skill 2 passive on cooldown. That paired with the ability to CR push the entire team, give attack buff to them at the same time, and also not being that fragile, makes Closer Charles definitely a good 4 or 5 pick. There are plenty of times where someone will draft something like Abyssal Euphine into Aiden, plus Sage Ball, plus Arrow, etc. And they're super slow. And so long as you have a Closer Charles that can push up, you know, your Ludwig, or, you know, push up like your Sid, whatever character you want to pair with him, he's pretty decent. And again, he has his own evasion, and he doesn't get as easily one-shot compared to some of the other characters. I'm looking at you, top model Lulika, who is like literally not a character anymore. But because she doesn't activate characters like Ocean Breeze, and pretty much because he can't get countered, his only real answer or his only real weakness is Angel of Light. And let's be honest, most people are banning Angel of Light, or you know what, you were gonna lose anyway because there's Angel of Light in the game. That being said, I think he's really good. And finally, let's talk about Spirit Eye Celine, because the honest to God truth about this character is that she has literally changed zero. There is literally no difference between how you play Spirit Eye Celine. Yes, you can argue that she does a little bit more damage on S1, but come on, guys. If he procs, or if she procs Dust Devil, she was gonna one-shot you anyways. Otherwise, it has almost never, or I've almost never seen like an instance where she is so overwhelmingly like overpowered and special now that she needs like some special recognition for it. Her alongside some of the other buffed characters like Infinite, Horizon, and Acades may also just need a little bit more testing to see how good she is. But ultimately, unless if there's like a very specific draft and people are trying to like mix up like their playstyle, I don't think the characters are any higher than C tier. Because again, 5th pick, maybe someone is willing to ban Infinite, Horizon, and Acades because you have a bunch of debuffs, or maybe because, you know, someone is picking Flan or something, you can get away with picking Spirit Eye Celine. But again, the niche situations that you'd pick her in are kind of here and there, far and few, not really worth mentioning. Again, you could also probably just do the same job, you know, with Aiden. Kind of the same thing. Violet is kind of also the same thing, by the way. And again, just to like remind you guys, since there is no anti-cleave and no cleave section, a lot of these characters are now funneled in just based off of what I've seen and what I think is most popular. Violet is not as good of a cleave answer because a lot of people would rather take like the 70-30 of Aiden than the 55-45 of Violet to like, you know, counter stuff. That being said, he's still pretty pickable if people end up drafting water units, so it is what it is, but that's fine. Okay, and now finally we have the D tier. There is just basically someone that does their exact job but better, or you would have to own so much gear in order to consider playing these characters, and you would have to find such a very specific draft for like these characters to work, and therefore it's kind of just not worth it to build them. And you see the characters here. If you didn't also, by the way, catch the C tier, you could catch this over here. I apologize because my screen was probably in front of it. But here are the characters that I am basically talking about. You have Brieg, you have Giselle, you have Sylvan Sage, you have Cowrick, Bassar. All these characters are very, very bad, in all honesty. Maybe they hold a book. Maybe they can be used in a 1 out of a million situation. But ultimately, most people, I think nowadays, have found like a different or alternative situation or like an alternative solution. A lot of the things that these characters counter, or they just get countered by like existing. Archdemon Mercedes, for instance. Who is this, right? Gets cleaved pretty simply. You need like the star, moon, and like sky to align in order for you to not get cleaved. And even then, you get one shot by Solitaria. Great thinking, Smilegate. Shepherd Jenna literally got power crept, by the way, by a character that's even worse than her, which is insane. But like Judge Kisei and like Shepherd Jenna are like the same exact character, not quite good enough, not fast enough. They both can get 15%'d, which is like terrible. And so like, why would you ever pick this character? Furthermore, we have a couple other imprints that are like much more difficult to justify picking, or they're like super niche. Mercenary Helga, I think, is an imprint, right? I'm pretty sure Mercenary Helga is an imprint. Ruzid, Celeste, Gloomy Rain is maybe a little bit better, and like, please Smilegate, give us, you know, especially a change. But ultimately, a lot of these characters are just not really worth building. They're too niche. I apologize. Let me put the fluffy skin on. But yeah, a lot of these characters are like too niche. They're not worth it. They're like, eh. At the very most, like, you could probably get like a niche win here or there, like screenshot your win against like your favorite content creator or YouTuber, and then like put it on your fridge. But ultimately, they're not that good. And let me kind of go a little bit in depth with this time only 2 characters, because again, they probably don't even look like they fit here. And those 2 characters are probably going to be Melissa and Flan. Now, again, I am speaking a little bit as a cleaver, so I understand. However, you have to understand that Flan and Melissa are some of like the most extra, like, you've been pre-banned 9 times. They don't deserve to actually be on this list kind of characters, unless if you have geared up pretty much everyone else in the game. Flan is so difficult to play right now because, again, have to deal with Zeo, or you have to be on Guiding Light, but then if you're on Guiding Light, then you don't have the souls sometimes for your Sid, and it's terrible. Most people nowadays already have immunity, which is why she's definitely lost more value. And then you have Melissa, who, I mean, she looks okay, and again, I have like Leah up here, which again, I did a little bit of testing with Leah. I think she's interesting, but she's probably just like a Banshee bot. But Melissa, I think, is still okay because, again, she does a little bit of solo potential, or she has a little bit of solo potential if you end up playing around her. Some people are like, you know, ride or die with playing auxiliary lots, and since he's kind of gotten reverted, he still kind of works if you want to play Melissa. That being said, though, if you want to remove her off the list, I understand. But yeah, those are pretty much the characters in D tier. Like I said, these are like the characters that you have to be so in love with these characters in order to make work, because otherwise they're just terrible, and like, why would you play them? Otherwise, don't really play these characters, guys. They're kind of a waste. You can build them if you have like the extra resources, but if you're curious about where your molas and your resources go later on, this is where they've gone. And finally, I played like maybe 10 games of Roman, and he stinks. I didn't play him before, so I don't even know what he used to do with the poison, but man, he sure is bad now. Don't play this character. Great. That's gonna be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed or learned something. If you did, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, subscribe. Let me know what you think about the RTA tier list. If you think the RTA list is right or wrong. I'm having like that thing right now where I don't know if I've misspelled February, but anyways, that's fine. I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials: Discord, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. I stream, and I also stream this on YouTube and Twitch at the same time. I'll see you guys on the next one, though. Adios.